Welcome, wonderful humans. It's Queen Levine, the history machine, back for another round of historical baking. Last time I made jumbles, starting with a popular recipe from George Washington's time, and tonight we're going to pick up where we left off in our curriculum with John Quincy Adams, who is the 6th President of the United States, and will be making his soft molasses cookies. So we're going to start these tonight because the dough needs some time to chill. So I'll start it tonight, then I'll put it in the fridge, chill for a few hours, and then finish them tomorrow morning. So I thought it was only fitting to start with John Quincy Adams' recipe because that's what we're going to be learning about next in class, especially when we come back from our COVID closure and the election of 1824. And if you want to start learning about this now, you can with materials on Schoology. So I'm going to start the recipe and also give you some historical knowledge as I do that. I'll turn some music in a little bit. Always have to dance while I'm baking. So we're going to start tonight with our soft molasses cookies, which, as the recipe says, this adapted early American recipe was popular during Adams' presidency. And I'm going to half this recipe since I live alone and I really don't need 6 dozen of these little cakes, which comes out in this recipe. They're more like little cakes than cookies, and the fun fact is that's what cookies were called in the 1800s. They were actually called little cakes. The word cookie, as we know it, comes from a Dutch word. Fun facts. So 1 cup of soft butter. I'll use 1 stick. 1 cup would be 2 sticks. I'm halving that. Then 1.5 cups molasses, light or dark. I'll be using 3/4 cup. See, I can do math too. 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm using 1/8. 4 cups flour, I'm using 2 cups, 1.5 teaspoons salt, 2 teaspoons baking soda, 2 teaspoons cinnamon, 1.5 teaspoons ground ginger, and 1/2 teaspoon of cloves and an egg. I don't have cloves, so I'm going to substitute nutmeg instead. They'll give a similar earthy, spicy flavor, so still be delicious. All right, the first step says to preheat the oven to 350, but since I'm not baking them tonight, I will do that tomorrow when I bake them. So in a large bowl, you are going to stir together your flour. So I have 2 cups of flour already perfectly measured out, like I'm on a cooking show. Then I'm going to add, I'm halving this recipe, so instead of 1.5 teaspoons of salt, I'll be adding 3/4 teaspoons of salt. So I'll just do that 3 times. As I said, I can do math. And I can make cooking videos. Look, Queen Levine has so many talents. So as I said, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the election of 1824. Oh, that rhymed. So, as I'm doing that, also getting a teaspoon of baking soda. If you remember, after the War of 1812, we had the era of good feelings, where James Monroe was president. And that's when we had a decline of the Federalist Party after the War of 1812. So, after Monroe serves his 2 terms and he steps down just like Madison did, just like Jefferson did, just like Washington did, in 1824, it's time for a new election. But we only have 1 political party. So we have 4 people, John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, our war hero from the Battle of New Orleans, William Crawford, and Henry Clay. You'll remember him, one of those young congressmen, war hawks who really wanted to go to war in 1812, are all running as Democratic Republicans. So the problem is that you have 4 people running in the same party. So think about that. Well, I get us a teaspoon of cinnamon. Makes everything better. I love cinnamon, one of my favorite spices. And it's almost empty. You can see how much I use it. Luckily, I have more. Always need cinnamon. And we're going to do some ginger. Oh, these are going to be so good. I am so excited. I'll probably end up freezing a bunch of them since, as I said, I do live alone, so I can't eat all of these cookies. And it's during a quarantine, so normally I share them with coworkers and friends, but can't do that now. And I also still have cookies in my freezer from my last presidential baking expedition last week. So many cookies. They will all go in the freezer. All right, so I mix this all together, and I'm going to set it aside while I pick up our story about the election of 1824. So as I said, 4 candidates, all within the same party, Democratic Republicans. So what happens? Well, Andrew Jackson will come away with winning the popular vote and the Electoral College, but he doesn't get a majority of them. You have John Quincy Adams very close behind, and then William Crawford, and then Henry Clay. Henry Clay also happened to be Speaker of the House at this time. Now, if you remember, when there isn't a clear majority, then what happens? Just like it happened in the election of 1800 with Jefferson and Aaron Burr, it will go to the House of Representatives, and they decide. I'm going to move on over here as I tell that story, and we are going to work on melting some butter and sugar and molasses to continue with our recipe and to continue with our story. So, as I was saying, we don't have a clear majority. So it goes to the House of Representatives. Now, one of the important things to keep in mind is at this time, the position of Secretary of State, who's the person who deals with like international relationships and things like that, was the predecessor for becoming president. Both Jefferson was Secretary of State for Washington before he became president, and Madison was, Monroe was, John Quincy Adams was Secretary of State, and as I mentioned, when there isn't a clear winner, it goes to the House of Representatives. So, the election will go to the House, and the top 3 people will go to the House for them to decide. So in this case, it was Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams, and William Crawford from Georgia. And Henry Clay, who ran for president and comes in 4th place, he doesn't get to compete for this, but he's the Speaker of the House. He is the most powerful position in the House. So why does this matter? Because there's this idea that John Quincy Adams will become president. The House will end up voting for him. And what happens to Henry Clay? He becomes Secretary of State, which was the position, which was the stepping stone to president at this time. So this matters because it's the idea that was there a corrupt bargain? Did John Quincy Adams promise Henry Clay the position of Secretary of State if he made him president over Andrew Jackson? And Andrew Jackson definitely was upset about this, thought that the election was taken from him because he won the popular vote and the Electoral College vote, but just not a majority, which is why it went to the House. So he'll remember this back in 1828 when he runs again, and will try to use that and successfully use that to become president. And John Quincy Adams only serves for 1 term, just like his father, John Adams, both of them 1-term presidents. And you can learn more about this and the corrupt bargain on Schoology with some primary sources. You know, Queen Levine loves primary sources just as much as she loves the molasses cookies. So right now what I'm doing is melting some butter. Gonna check my recipe right here. So mix in a large saucepan, melt butter. So that's what I'm doing right now is I'm melting my butter. And then I'm gonna stir in the sugar and molasses and let it cool just a little bit. Then I'll mix in some of our flour mixture, beat in our egg, and then more of our flour mixture. And then I will let this cool, and I'll carry on tomorrow and let you all think about this awesome story and get you to go look at some primary sources while school is closed. Because I know you all need things to do, and I'm sure you're tired of Netflix by now, and you've read all the books you have in your house, so, what's better than looking at some primary sources? Primary sources with soft molasses cookies. Alright, so this is melted. I'm going to add in the sugar. I like to think of, people doing this at the time over their open hearth and cooking them in their little reflector ovens over the fire, kind of like our ovens. When I did an internship in college at Old Sturbridge Village, it was very similar. I made lots of cookies that way, and it was super fun. I'm just having my open hearth. All right. So I'm just going to mix this all in, remove it from the heat so it can start cooling a little bit. Double check my recipe, kind of helps that my book fell apart. All right. So stir this all in, and take a little break from the headband. Oh, butter, sugar, molasses. What could be better? Primary sources. Oh, always. So, I hope you all have been enjoying your closure so far. I know it's been a lot of uncertainty. It's been really weird for me. I've definitely missed being in class every day. I miss the structure, the routine, seeing all of you. It's weird being home all the time. There's some things I've been doing to fill my time besides baking. Talking to family a lot, calling my grandmother every day and my mom, and talking to my brother and friends, so that's been really great. I just wish I had people to share all these cookies with. Okay, so now we're going to add about half of the flour mixture. Maybe I should let it cool a little bit longer, but I'm impatient, so if you're making this at home, you should let it cool. And I will post the recipe on Schoology in case you want to make, the full recipe, not the half version like I did, and see the whole recipe for yourself. You can make some cookies to share with your family during this time. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. And when you share the cookies with them, you can tell them the story of the election of 1824 and the corrupt bargain. You get a cookie and history. What could be better? Nothing. Nothing could be better. All right. Mixing, mixing, mixing. This looks very sticky. I can see why we need to chill, but it's so good. Oh, I can smell the 19th century. All the molasses, all the spices. Now, unlike in the 19th century, I did not get my eggs fresh from my chickens. These are from the store. But maybe next time I can get some from Mr. Kraft. We'll see. All right, so mix in your egg and then the rest of the flour, and then I'm just going to put this probably in the saucepan in the fridge to chill just because it's one less dish for me to wash. I used to love baking when I was in high school. I did it all the time, and my mom's rule was, one, I had to finish my homework first. I always had to finish that, which wasn't always good at. I always finished it, but I always went to bake beforehand. But I had to finish my homework before I baked, and I always had to clean up the dishes. So that's one of the nice things about, living on my own, is if I want to bake at 9 o'clock on a, Monday night, I can bake at 9 o'clock on a Monday night. It's pretty great, especially when I'm baking a historical recipe. All right, so we added the rest of the flour and spice mixture. Just gonna mix that all up. Ooh, now it's forming. I can see it becoming like a good dough, even though it needs to chill. And again, I made half recipe. It says it's going to make 3 dozen. We'll see. Sometimes I feel like recipes often make less than what they claim. All right, so I'm going to put this in the fridge to chill. I'll take it out. I'm going to stir it a little bit more. Now it says for 2 hours. I'm going to do it overnight because I'm not going to wait till 11. I like staying up late, but not that late. Even when we don't have work the next day, I have things to do and get up and have more lesson planning to do and more things to prepare for all of you. So I'm going to let these chill. I will finish them tomorrow and post pictures of the final project, or final product, I should say. I won't make another video, but I'll just post some pictures of the cookies and of the recipe. So that's my plan. Look on Schoology for everything you need to do, and email me or comment on Schoology if you have any questions. All right, well, amazing students, that is it for now. I probably won't be able to bake my way through the whole book since I'll run out of flour, and again, I don't need so many cookies for one person, but I'll find a few other fun recipes. I'll post them in case you want to make them. All right, I'm going to put this in the fridge, and I will post pictures tomorrow. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Queen Levine out.